Sup guys, it's Alex here, and welcome to another edition of the Bracketology update, with this one being for Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all you beautiful people out there. I am in love with college basketball, as you guys know. I'm sure you are too if you're watching this video at this point in the season, watching a random YouTuber make a Bracketology video a month before the NCAA tournament. That means you are a diehard college basketball fan, and not just a casual, just college basketball fan, just sticking around watching a game here and there, waiting for the tournament to actually care about college basketball. But man, hope you guys had a great weekend. We had some crazy upsets this weekend. I mean, Stanford beat Arizona. Who saw that coming? I think Stanford has a losing record. Arizona has a ton of great wins, but just had a bad loss there. Number one, Purdue ended up losing to Northwestern. Northwestern looks like a pretty much lock now to get to the NCAA tournament and maybe even make some noise in the NCAA tournament depending on what happens. Last night we had Texas Tech upsetting Texas. Could the Big 12 get every single team in the NCAA tournament? Never been done before. Conference has never taken all of their teams into the NCAA tournament, but maybe this is the year with the Big 12. Texas Tech, I think, is the only one that's not in the NCAA tournament picture at this point. I mean, I can't think of any other ones off of the top of my head from the Big 12. But man, just a crazy week of college basketball. Things are starting to shake out. Teams kind of know their position that they're in here with less than a month to go at this point. Selection Sunday, I believe, is March 13th. Today, obviously, is February 14th. That means we have less than a month to go, and I am so freaking excited. But before we get into it too, and also we'll get into Alabama now having the number one seed overall, I guess number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament. But taking a look here at the bubble, last four byes are West Virginia, who, while they've been stacking quality wins over the last couple of weeks, they got absolutely blown out over the weekend. I can't remember who it was to, honestly, but it was like a 30-point loss. Maybe it was to Texas, I want to say, and then lost again last night to Baylor. But West Virginia, kind of an enigma team. Then we have Auburn. Auburn was one of those teams that was stacking huge wins earlier in the season, but I think they've lost 6 of their last 7 games, I want to say. But maybe Auburn can turn it around. Had a great chance to beat Alabama over the weekend, but kind of let Alabama slip away there at the end. Then we have Boise State and Memphis. Last 4 in are Mississippi State. Mississippi State and Kentucky play on Wednesday, so that will be a huge game with bubble implications there. North Carolina barely hanging in there. I mean, North Carolina preseason number 1. People thought they were going to be a title favorite there, but now they find themselves here in the last 4 in after taking a loss last night at home to Miami. Then we have New Mexico, who is the last remaining undefeated team in college basketball this year, but they have 6 conference losses. I think they're only 6-6 in their conference, so they are in perilous danger of falling out of the tournament picture. And then we have Clemson, last team in, missed a chance for a quality win against North Carolina over the weekend. They find themselves as the last team in. First 4 out are Oregon, Kentucky, who lost to Georgia in a bad loss over the weekend. I mean, as a Kentucky fan, you can't have that loss. They probably would have been in the last 4 byes, probably in Memphis' position if they were to win that game. Then we have USC and Wisconsin, and then the next 4 out are Charleston, Arizona State, Seton Hall, and Utah. So now taking a look here at the bracket, just some general movements here. I'm going to try to go to the games in Louisville this year. We'll see if I'm actually able to end up doing so, just based off of work and stuff. But I would be super excited to go to those games. In that region, we have Alabama. While there's not a movement thing next to it, they have now taken the number 1 overall seed from Purdue. And even more, they're playing in Birmingham. Birmingham, Alabama, that would be a huge, basically, home court advantage there for the Crimson Tide. But then we have Creighton up to a 5. They turned that season around. I think they were on a bubble maybe a month ago at this point, but they are doing fantastic as of late. Same thing with Indiana, now up to a 4. Marquette up to a 3. Northwestern up to a 7 after that huge win over Purdue. Auburn down to a 10. And then Baylor up to the 2 line. Then if we take a look at the Midwest Regional over there, we have Oklahoma State, which Oklahoma State, they weren't even on the bubble picture a month ago. But now they find themselves here as an 8 seed. They have turned around their season, stacking up quality win after quality win. I think they've won 7 out of 8 games too, something like that. They have Arkansas down to a 9. New Mexico down to an 11. Tennessee down to a 3. Man, Tennessee's just been having terrible luck over the last few games, losing to Florida, then 2 straight buzzer beaters, losing to Vanderbilt and Missouri. Then we have Texas A&M up to a 10, representing the SEC there. Then over there in the West Regional, we have Providence down to an 8. They've kind of been faltering as of late. And we have Duke down to a 9. So weird seeing Duke on the 9 line there. Then we have Illinois up to a 5. Iowa State down to a 4. That's another team that's kind of been faltering lately. Then we have St. Mary's down to a 6 after losing to Loyola Marymount. Mississippi State new to the field, and then North Carolina there down to an 11. Michigan State up to a 7, which, I mean, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video. Prayers for Michigan State, man, that's just a crazy situation happening on campus with the shooting there. Hopefully, I mean, they did catch the guy and he ended up shooting himself, but man, thoughts and prayers to them. They're putting a pause on all their athletic events, which they should. That's just a situation that should not be happening in, not only in the college basketball world, but just in life. And then over there in the East Regional, we have Kansas up to the 1 line, taking the spot of Arizona. As you can see, Arizona falling down to the 2. Maryland down to an 8, Pittsburgh down to a 9, UConn down to a 5, TCU down to a 6, Memphis new to the field as an 11, Missouri up to a 7, West Virginia down to a 10, and then Arizona down to a 2. So as you guys know, every time that I do one of these bracketology videos, I go to vertex42.com, download their Excel bracket, and then I fill out the teams based off of Joe Lunardi's bracketology here, and then I do my own predictions based off of what I think is going to happen on the NCAA tournament, just based off of how these brackets shake out. And before we get into the predictions here, as you guys know, every time we do one of these videos, for the people that are actually watching and sticking around for the entire video instead of just skipping to the end, because my average watch time on a video is like 4 minutes, so they just skip to the end to see what happens. If you're watching at this point in the video, comment ravioli down below. Maybe even get a little crazy with the say ravioli, give me the formioli, that sort of thing, but that's just a little something there, so I know that you guys are watching at this point in the video, 7 minutes in. But anyway, obviously, Alabama's going to beat the winner of Alcorn and Fairleigh Dickinson there. Then we're going to go with NC State over Florida Atlantic. Creighton hanging on past Liberty there. I think that'll be a good game. Indiana would beat VCU. Then I'm going to go with an upset pick here, 11 over 6 with Boise State over Iowa. Marquette will hang on past Hofstra. Then we're going to go with Northwestern there. They're just playing better basketball as of late than Auburn, getting a quality win there in the NCAA tournament. And then Baylor beating Vermont. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Alabama here moving on past NC State. Indiana with Trace Jackson Davis moving on past Creighton. Then we're going to have Marquette moving on past Boise State, along with Baylor over Northwestern. And then I did this back on Saturday's video. I had Indiana beating Alabama, a 4-1 upset. Both teams won over the weekend, Alabama beating Auburn and then Indiana beating Michigan. So why not do it again? Let's have the #1 overall seed in the tournament falter here in the Sweet 16 and have Indiana moving on to the Elite 8. And they will face Baylor. And then for a spot in the Final Four, I'm going to go with Indiana. The Hoosiers moving on there. There's been a culture shift in that program with Mike Woodson, got one of the best players in the nation, and Trace Jackson Davis. I think that they could make a run there and make the Final Four, which, when was the last time Indiana made the Final Four? All right, moving on to the top right regional here, we're going to have Purdue moving on past the winner of Howard and Morehead State. Then we're going to have Oklahoma State hanging on past Arkansas, Miami beating Southern Miss, along with Xavier over Utah Valley. Then we're going to go with Rutgers beating the winner of Clemson and New Mexico, which I think would be Clemson. Tennessee moving on past Furman. Then Texas A&M pulling off the 10-7 upset over San Diego State, along with Texas moving on past UNC Asheville. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Purdue moving on past Oklahoma State. Miami, I think Miami's going to beat Xavier there. Xavier had a crazy ending to the game against Butler on Saturday, but they ended up losing there. I got Miami pulling off the slight 5-4 upset. Then we're going to go with Rutgers here pulling off the 6-3 upset over Tennessee. Tennessee, as of late, just hasn't been the same team that they used to be, and they just haven't been able to close out games as of late either. We got 6-seed Rutgers pulling off the upset there, where they will face Texas there, who will renew their rivalry with Texas A&M, but also beat them there. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we're going to go with Purdue moving on past Miami there to advance on. And then we're also going to go with Texas moving on past Rutgers. So a lot of upsets here in that regional, but we end up with the 1 versus 2 coming out of there. And I do have Purdue with Zach Edey moving on out of that regional. So now moving on down to the bottom right one, we're going to go with Houston moving on past the winner, or I guess just past Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Then we're going to go with Duke pulling off the 9/8 upset over Providence. I just believe in John Shire and the talent that Duke has there. Then we're going to go with an upset here with Oral Roberts. Max Abness, they're like number 40 in the net, so it's not like a bad team at all. I got the 12/5 upset with Oral Roberts there over Illinois. They've already proven that they can make a run in the NCAA tournament. Can they do it again? But then we're going to go with Iowa State here, moving on past Drake. Then we are going to go with St. Mary's beating the winner of Mississippi State and North Carolina. Kansas State moving on past UC Santa Barbara. Michigan State hanging on past Nevada, and then UCLA beating Eastern Washington. And then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we are going to go with Houston moving on past Duke there. A lot of people have been commenting on my videos lately saying that I've been disrespecting Houston. Maybe I have, but it's just the way the brackets have shook out so far. I got Houston moving on past Duke. Then we're going to go with an upset pick here. We are going to go with Oral Roberts making it to the Sweet 16 yet again. 12/4 upset there, taking out Iowa State. Why not let it fly and have Oral moving on there? Then we're going to go with Kansas State moving on past St. Mary's, and then UCLA beating Michigan State. Though I could easily see Michigan State moving on there. I think I had Michigan State beating UCLA in the last video. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. But now for a spot in the Elite Eight, we are going to go with Houston moving on past Oral Roberts, as much as I'd love to see Oral Roberts continuing their run, where they will face Kansas State. That one, I guess I didn't pick Kansas State there, but we're going to have Kansas State moving on there. That program, while they've been suffering a couple losses lately, I think that they can beat UCLA, which sets up Houston versus Kansas State for a spot in the Final Four. And I'm going to go with the Wildcats of Kansas State advancing on there. So final regional here, we're going to have Kansas beating Milwaukee along with Pittsburgh beating Maryland. Then we're going to have Connecticut beating Kent State and then Gonzaga beating Yale. Then TCU will fall to Memphis here. TCU, another team that just hasn't been winning very much as of late, just the craziness that is the Big 12. Then we're going to have Virginia beating the Fighting Toothpaste of Colgate, Missouri hanging on past West Virginia, and then Arizona beating Rider. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Kansas moving on past Pittsburgh, Gonzaga beating Connecticut, Virginia hanging on past Memphis, no upset there, and then Arizona beating Missouri. I feel like that's a pretty easy round to predict there. Kansas versus Gonzaga, this is where it can get crazy, but I'm going to go with Kansas moving on there past Gonzaga, where they will face Virginia. I just believe in Tony Bennett's squad to get on to the Elite Eight there, beating Arizona, but they will fall to Kansas, who has turned it around as of late. I think Kansas can make a run here. So we have two Big 10 teams and two Big 12 teams, fitting because they've been the two best conferences in college basketball in the season to this point. So first up, we have Indiana 4 seed versus Kansas, the 1 seed, and I am going to go with Kansas there, as much as I hate to move them on to the to the national championship game, where they will end up facing Purdue, who will beat Kansas State there. So we have, after some crazy upsets here and some Cinderella runs, we end up with two number 1 seeds in the national championship game, the reigning national champions in Kansas, and then the Boilermakers of Purdue, who's been number 1 for most of the season. But I am going to go with Purdue and Zach Edey. Even though they just lost over the weekend, they've only lost 3 games this season, I got them winning the championship here. So, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave your reactions to my predictions in the comments section below. Let me know your own thoughts and predictions in the comments as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later.